The sun was sinking low over the dry plains when Clara Monroe stumbled down the dirt road, her worn boots kicking up dust. The wind bit at her face, carrying the scent of sage and smoke. She had nowhere left to go. Her stagecoach had been robbed that morning, her belongings taken, her escort shot. She walked for miles until her legs trembled beneath her. Ahead, through the shimmering heat, she spotted a small ranch nestled at the foot of a hill. Smoke rose gently from its chimney. She whispered a prayer and kept walking toward it. By the time she reached the porch, her knees were ready to give. She lifted a trembling hand and knocked on the wooden door. After a long moment, it opened, revealing a tall man with a weathered face and steady gray eyes. He looked her over. Torn dress, dirt-streaked cheeks, fear in her gaze. "You lost, ma'am?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "Stagecoach was attacked. I've been walking all day." His expression softened, though he didn't smile. "You better come in before the coyotes find you first." Inside, the house was modest but warm. The smell of stew filled the air. Two little girls peeked out from behind the table, wide-eyed. The man turned toward them. "It's all right, girls. She's just passing through." He looked back at the stranger. "Name's Luke Carson. This here's my home." Clara nodded faintly. "Clara Monroe." "Thank you, Mr. Carson." She sank into a chair, exhaustion washing over her. The older girl whispered, "Pa, she looks like an angel." Luke chuckled quietly. "Maybe, but angels don't usually carry dust on their boots." That night, Clara helped serve supper despite her shaking hands. The younger girl, Lila, sat beside her, asking endless questions about where she came from and whether she could stay. Luke watched from across the table, his heart stirring with something unfamiliar, warmth. After losing his wife 2 years ago, the ranch had grown quiet, the laughter gone. Seeing his girls smile again brought life back to the old cabin. When the children had gone to bed, Clara whispered, "I'll leave by morning." But Luke shook his head slowly. "Not tonight. You'll freeze out there." The next morning, Clara stepped outside, gazing over the wide plains bathed in gold. She felt the pull of the land, harsh, lonely, and yet full of promise. Luke joined her, his hat tilted low. "You got anywhere to go?" he asked. She shook her head. "No one waiting for me." He took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the horizon. "I ain't one for fancy talk, but I need help raising these girls. You need shelter. Maybe we can help each other." Clara turned to him, stunned. "You're asking me to stay?" He nodded once. Life on the Carson ranch moved slowly but steady. Clara cooked, mended clothes, and taught the girls their lessons. Luke worked the fields from dawn till dusk, always glancing toward the house where laughter had returned. At first, Clara felt out of place and a stranger among their grief, but as days passed, the walls began to fall. One night after supper, Luke found her brushing Lila's hair by the fire. "You're good with them," he said quietly. She smiled. "They make it easy." His gaze lingered a moment longer than it should have. Weeks turned into months. The prairie bloomed under the spring sun, and so did the bond between Clara and the family. She taught the girls to bake and read, while Luke repaired the barn roof with her laughter echoing across the yard. The loneliness in his heart slowly melted. But peace never lasted long on the frontier. One afternoon, as Clara was hanging laundry, a shadow crossed the yard. 3 men on horseback. The same outlaws who'd robbed the stagecoach. Their leader grinned.
"Well, look what we found."
"The lady who got away." Luke burst through the door, rifle in hand. "You boys are trespassing," the outlaw spat. "We're just collecting what's ours." He pointed at Clara, who stood frozen in fear. Luke stepped forward, voice low and steady. "She ain't yours. Leave while you can." The man sneered and reached for his gun, but Luke was faster. The shot rang out, echoing across the land. Chaos erupted. The girls screamed from inside as bullets shattered wood. Clara grabbed Lila and pulled her down. Luke fired again, dropping the second man. The last outlaw fled into the hills. Silence fell, broken only by the wind. Luke's chest heaved, smoke curling from his rifle. Clara stared at him, not in fear, but in awe. He turned to her, voice trembling slightly. "You all right?" She nodded. "Thanks to you." Later that night, after the girls had finally stopped crying, Clara found him sitting on the porch, staring into the dark. "I didn't mean to bring trouble here," she whispered. He shook his head. "Trouble finds its way no matter where you are. I'm just glad you're here to help me fight it." As summer stretched across the plains, the ranch began to thrive again. Clara's laughter returned to the walls, and Luke's daughters clung to her as though she'd always been part of their lives. But both adults carried quiet fears, of loss, of love, of what tomorrow might bring. One night, as thunder rumbled in the distance, Clara confessed softly, "I've never belonged anywhere before." Luke looked at her through the flickering lamplight. "You do now." She smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "Do you really mean that?" He reached out, gently taking her hand. "I do." By autumn, word of their story spread through the nearby towns. The widowed cowboy who took in a stranded woman and built a new life from dust and sorrow. Luke proposed simply, under a cottonwood tree where the girls played. "Ain't got much to offer but a home in my heart," he said. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "That's all I ever wanted." They married quietly the next Sunday, the preacher from Clearwater riding out to the ranch. The girls tossed wildflowers, laughing as the wind carried the scent of a new beginning. Years passed, and the Carson Ranch grew into a symbol of hope. Travelers often stopped for a meal, welcomed with warmth and kindness. Clara taught others to read, while Luke helped rebuild a neighbor's barn after a fire. The girls grew strong and happy, their laughter filling every corner of the land. Sometimes, when the sun set low and golden, Luke would wrap his arm around Clara's shoulders and whisper, "Guess you were my miracle after all." And she'd smile softly, resting her head against his chest. "And you were mine." In the end, the widower cowboy and the lost woman didn't just find shelter. They found home. The land that had once been harsh now seemed gentle, touched by love and forgiveness. On quiet nights when the wind rustled through the cottonwoods, Luke could almost hear his late wife's voice in the breeze, whispering that he'd done right. Clara would stand beside him hand in hand, both knowing that even in a world built on loss, second chances could bloom like wildflowers after the storm. And long after they were gone, folks still told their story, of the cowboy who needed a mother for his girls, and the woman who needed a place to belong. They said it wasn't chance that brought them together, but destiny riding on the wind. Their home, still standing strong against the endless prairie sky, became a place where kindness lived on, proof that love could grow even in the roughest corners of the Wild West. And every sunset, their story lived again in the golden light.